Gun-Free SA spokesperson Adele Kirsten joins us live from Johannesburg. Adele, good day and thank you for joining us. Now, the national murder rate has risen by almost 5% according to the latest crime statistics. What do you think is fueling the murder rate?
Well, usually it's a combination of lack of control over the issuing of gun licenses, poor policing in terms of recovery of weapons at crime scenes. But it's also that's what we call the vector, that's the agent. But we also need to be looking at things like ongoing increases in income inequality and general inequality in the country, lack of access to jobs, political and social exclusion, particularly of young people. Having said that, I think one of the interesting statistics that have come out of this crime stats is the illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, where one sees a decrease. So these are crimes that become crimes as a result of police action. So you see a decrease in the number of people arrested for the illegal possession of guns and ammunition. And that's quite a difficult statistic to interpret, because it could mean that in exact numbers we're seeing a decrease in the number of illegal weapons in circulation. But it can also mean that we're seeing less police operations, and that's why the number is down. So without more information, it's quite difficult to interpret that data. However, one sees in the breakdown that even with the decrease, we're seeing almost 40 incidents a day in which people are being found in illegal possession of guns and ammunition. So on the one hand, it could be good news that we're seeing a reduction. On the other hand, it could mean that police aren't doing enough search and seizure. I think the last thing to say on the crime stats is there's some interesting differences in the aggravated robbery categories. So, for example, we're seeing an increase in carjacking. And again, for Gun-Free South Africa, it's what weapons are being used in these kinds of crime. But if you look at bank robbery, bank robberies have declined significantly over the last number of years and continue to do so. And so one of the questions is to ask, what is happening in the bank robbery scenario that makes people, that's contributing to that decrease? And basically from what we know is that banks about 10 years ago took a decision not to arm their guards. Now, is that one of the things that's contributing? So again, more information needed on what are the things that the police are doing that are helping to decrease crime. We need that kind of analysis because for certainly both for government and for civil society organizations and for things like the community police forums, the more information we have, the better our analysis can be and the more informed our interventions can be.
Do you think that perhaps South Africa's crime statistics are troubling as compared to the rest of the world?
Well, one has to, compare apples with apples. So we have to look at ourselves in relation to countries that have similar social and economic conditions such as ours, such as Brazil, many of the Latin American countries, many of our neighbors. Certainly if we compare ourselves to our immediate neighbors in the Southern Africa region, we have significant increases, particularly in the violent crime category. So I think, and if you look at global data, one of the most recent UN Office on Drugs and Crime data, which was released in 2014, showed that we're in the top 18 countries with the highest murder rates, and the sort of benchmark is any country with a murder rate of 30 per 100,000, and we are now at 34 per 100,000, are regarded as very violent countries. So we certainly are regarded as a country with high levels of violent crime and high levels of violence in general, a large part of which is interpersonal.
As far as the provinces are concerned, Ms. Kirsten, Northern Cape has shown a decline in murder rate. Is there something that they did right?
I guess that's and I haven't looked at the data sufficiently to look at the sort of provincial breakdown, but I did hear the report from the ministry. But that's I think, Lerato, that's the key question, is what are SAPS doing, but also what's happening in that province? What are we seeing in terms of employment rates? It would be interesting from Gun Free South Africa's perspective is what are the rates of firearm ownership in that province? Because globally that data seems to have an impact on the kind of violent crime that's committed, the easy availability and access to firearms. So I think we definitely need much more analysis and a breakdown of what's happening at provincial level.
And now, do you think, will more regular and detailed crime statistics help in any way?
Yes. I mean, I think for most civil society organizations, I think that's been a common call over the last number of years. And the reason we need that is that we need to understand the full picture. We need to understand what we talk about as risk factors. So what are the things that contribute to increasing the risk for particular crimes to happen? That would be true for gun-related crime, but it's very relevant for sexual offences. But any type of crime, we need to be understanding what are the conditions under which the crime is happening, what are the instruments that are being used, what time of day is it happening, because that will then inform us in terms of what are then the most appropriate interventions.
And is there anything more that you've observed from the crime stats that you perhaps like to, share with us?
I think what we're seeing is significant decreases across what SAPS calls total property-related crime. So that's burglary at both residential and non-residential premises. So again, a similar question that you asked earlier, what is happening in those contexts? Is it as a result of SAPS intervention? Is it as a result of other social and political factors? So I think that's some interesting data there that we could try and unpack a bit more.
Now, any further comments from you, ma'am, before I let you go, perhaps because
I think I've covered what I want to say. Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to comment on the crime stats. I guess the one thing we're very, very pleased about, and I think is the commitment on the part of government to start releasing the crime stats quarterly. That's very good news.
Very much then on that note, that was a spokesperson for Gun Free South Africa, Adele Kirsten.